I welcome you all to Ansarkari. So in this video, we'll be taking up the newspaper for 13th of February 2023. So firstly, we'll be taking up The Hindu, followed by Financial Express and the Indian Express. So our 5-day A to India show is beginning in Bengaluru. Apart from that, China plans new line through the Aksai Chin. So we'll be looking into that. And then we'll be looking into the spirit of law lies in this dissenting judgment, which is excommunication and rights of the individual. So we'll be revisiting the Sardar Saidna verdict and other important topics in the newspapers. So 4G in the name only, and data needles stutter in grey spots in India. So Pervez Ahmed Qureshi has been complaining to his telecom provider Vodafone Idea that his mobile internet speeds are unusually low, not even reaching 512 kbps, previously promised to the broadband consumers. And the operator's representatives, they have visited the 25-year-old's home, which is there in Gujarat, and concluded that the speeds are within acceptable limits, blaming the network congestion for slow internet because we have 5G coming up now. So that is basically leading to slowing down of the speeds of other generation of networks, which includes 4G. We have 3G also. So for the 4G networks, they are typically classified under in India. Basically, there has been upgraded from 512 kbps to a minimum of 2 mbps. And we see that as per the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, which is TRAI, the three main telecom providers, they classify the majority of their subscriber base, almost 95%, as broadband consumers, which now means that they should be able to access the internet speeds of at least 2 mbps. So former Supreme Court judge among 6 new governors appointed. So basically, this raises the issue of whether a former judge, whether there should be a cooling off period or not. Whenever basically a former judge is appointed at a political position, and we have then other 5 people being appointed as the governors to different states. Then Maharishi Dayanand removed the evils falsely attributed to the religion as we're celebrating his 200th birth anniversary. So Prime Minister Modi said that Arya Samaj founder removed all evils falsely attributed to religion with the light of religion itself. And apart from that, we are celebrating India's Amrit Kal, and here we see that in this era of discord, violence, and instability, the path shown by Maharishi Dayanand gives hope. And he was born in an era where false interpretation of the Vedas was used to belittle India, and its traditions were being deformed as part of efforts to crush the ideals, culture, and roots of the nation. So basically, we're comparing those two periods, and even today we have like violence and instability, which is somewhere causing the social imbalance. And back then, during the Maharishi Dayanand's period, also there was like Vedas were being wrongly interpreted or misinterpreted, which was deforming and which were crushing the ideals, culture, and roots of the nation. So definitely, he's given tremendous contributions. So his campaign against the social ills such as discrimination and untouchability was there evils that were falsely attributed to religion. He removed them with the light of religion itself. And so a pride in heritage. So Prime Minister added that the new education policy had also been designed to modernize education with a focus on Indianness. So there's an Indian element in the education system, and that the country's wish to follow Swami Dayanand's teachings is reflected in the fact that people are now confidently calling for pride in our heritage. And we have the rescue operations going on in Turkey and Syria. So here we just have the political news, so we'll not be covering them up. So minor minerals sectors, it is riddled with irregularities and illegalities in Odisha. So here you can find out firstly what are minor minerals and where do we have them in India. Apart from that, we have like the district survey reports, and mining of minor minerals is allowed only if the district survey report is finalized. So that is there, and two major rivers flowing through Balasore, which is Subarnarekha, and we have Burha Balanga, which is there in Odisha state. They have suffered much because of the mining related to these minor minerals. And so sand, it acts as a sponge in the riverbed. Machines were used to extract the sand beyond its permissible limit. And if sand is taken out, the river water will flow down at much faster rate. So in the event of flood, there is every possibility of water like entering the new areas and obviously leading to floods. So the spirit of law lies in this dissenting judgment. So here basically we'll be looking into this judgment. So how must the rights of the religious groups be balanced with the rights of its adherents? So this question has long plagued India's courts. When one such clash it arose in 1962, the Supreme Court of India through 4-1 ruling, it firmly placed the group's rights over the individual freedom. So there in this judgment regarding the Sardar Sadaina Tahir Saifuddin versus the state of Bombay, a challenge was mounted by the leader of Dawoodi Bohra community to the Bombay Prevention of Excommunication Act of 1949, and the law prohibited the religious communities from expelling the individuals from a group's membership. And the petitioner claimed that he served not only as a trustee of the community's properties, but that he had also been vested with the power to excommunicate from the denomination any member of his choice. So, in his belief, this power was integral to the Dawoodi Bohra's collective right to religious freedom. So, this is what they believed in practice. And we had this act where basically, the law prohibited the religious communities from expelling the individuals from a group's membership. So, this law was declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, and it held that the Dai's power to excommunicate was so essential to the group's faith that a legislation in the name of social welfare cannot be allowed to reform a religion out of its existence. So basically, this practice by the Dawoodi Bohra's community was upheld, and that law was held to be unconstitutional by the court. So this verdict, it has long been a subject of critique, and firstly, the original ruling had failed to examine whether the rights of the religious denominations ought to be balanced with the other fundamental rights, particularly here the rights of its individual members to be treated with equal care and dignity. And secondly, in the years since this judgment, we see that Indian jurisprudence has evolved to a point where any act of excommunication ought to be tested on a touchstone of constitutional morality. Given these failures, the court believed that the issues involved they ought to be resolved by a larger bench. And so this is the issue that is being re-examined here. So when the bench searches for the answers to the questions posed by the Sardar Sadaina, it would do well to focus on the opinion of the then Chief Justice of India. So the other important things includes the subject of constitutional morality, that is under Article 26, which recognizes the rights of the religious denominations. It begins with a diktat that its promise would be subject to public order, morality, and health. So there are some reasonable restrictions under Article 26, which are public order, morality, and health. So what might morality mean here? So in referring to this judgment to a larger bench, Justice Oka makes clear that morality today must be understood to mean constitutional morality over here, and it must subsume within it the fundamental values supporting the Constitution, among them the ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity. And he also wrote that even assuming that the excommunication of the members of the Daudi Bohra community is always made on religious grounds, the effect and consequences thereof on the person excommunicated needs to be considered in the context of the justiciable constitutional rights. So he found in the face of things that excommunication brought with it serious civic consequences affecting a person's right to lead a meaningful life. So, here even Article 21 is also being violated when a person is excommunicated from a religious community. And the dissenting judgment in the Sardar Sadena rests on similar foundations. So, when the 9 judge bench searches for the answers to the questions posed to it, it will do well to turn to CJ Sinha's opinion, for in it lies the brooding spirit of the law. So, these are some of the questions, and again, like this judgment, it is being re examined, basically, a judicial review of it by a 9 judge constitutional bench. And again, here, like the different aspects which are being violated specifically when an individual is excommunicated from a religious community. So all of that would be looked into. So here we are seeing one of the aspects between growing India and US cooperation in the space sector. So we are seeing that we are like collaborating more when it comes to space cooperation. So recently, like we had NISAR mission. So NISAR is the NASA ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar, which is a highly specialized project. And so the standard solution to induce long-term cooperation is to sustain the engagement between academics, the private sector, and the state-led entities in the two countries. So the solutions, they are slow and they're not entirely suited for the new space age, where diplomacy struggles to keep up with the rate of technological innovation. So India and US, they must find novel solutions to cooperate in the new space age to achieve a meaningful partnership. So India could send its astronauts to train at the American private companies. This could help India reduce its dependence on Russia, while Israel builds its own astronaut training center. And another novel arrangement could be a consortium led by the government-owned New Space India Limited, which involves the private companies in the US. So this setup could accelerate India's human spaceflight program and give the US an opportunity to accommodate Indian interest in Earth orbits. So basically, we can collaborate. Basically, it is like arguing how India and US they can collaborate like in a more comprehensive manner in the space sector. And apart from that, the for like prelims, we have an important information regarding the NISA mission, and you can like find out more about its like features of it. So that is important. And like we have been talking about the economic crisis in Pakistan. So Pakistan, it pins its hope on another IMF bailout to starve off this economic crisis. We have talked about the different economic factors and variables, the macroeconomic variables when it comes to the economy of Pakistan. So we'll not be again going into all of that. So service firms, they are on recovery path and the manufacturing is still a concern. So while pessimism levels among the urban consumers that have declined and confidence about the economy is yet to reach its pre-pandemic levels. So that is majorly we can say or because of the inflation also, that consumers right now they are not so confident as they were during the pre-pandemic times. So here the like different data has been given regarding the service sector turnover and the infrastructure sector turnover. So almost like both of them are rising. Apart from that, so there are very less number of workers and respondents who said that their income levels have decreased between the period of September 2012 and January 2023. Then there are 52% of the respondents who said that economic situation has worsened. So we can say almost 50% have been impacted. 93% of them say that prices have increased. Definitely that's true also. So all smart cities mission projects, they're going to be ready by the next month. So different cities like Agra, Varanasi, Chennai, Pune, Ahmedabad that are expected to complete all the projects under the government's ambitious smart cities mission by next month, giving their citizens a better quality of life. So over 1 lakh villages, they have achieved ODF plus status in the country. Now they are open defecation free plus status so far, according to an official of the Drinking Water and Sanitation Department. And we have the Swachh Bharat Mission Grameen Phase 2, which was launched with the aim that all villages in the country, they can declare themselves as ODF plus by the end of 2024. So Indian Army is going to spend around $130 billion in capital procurement. So again, this whole issue of appointing Justice Victoria Gowri, and Supreme Court has said that they cannot again go into the suitability of appointing a judge and suitability of this matter. So basically they have recommended her name and she's been, a petition was like filed against her accusing her of hate speech against the minority community, but later Supreme Court said that this can't be judicially reviewed again. So the cardinal question raised in the Supreme Court by a group of petitioners is whether the appointment of a person who has spread hate against citizens due to the religious affiliation will erode the independence of judiciary, the fundamental right of access to justice, and the faith of the general public in the integrity of the judicial institution. So definitely this is going to have a huge negative impact when it comes to the trust and the confidence of people in democracy and even in judiciary, where we say that Indian judiciary is independent. So that is going to be impacted at a massive scale. So basically, the people of Tripura, they are demanding for a greater Tripura land, and So, Greater Tipra Land is the core ideological demand of the Tipra Motha, and the objective is to carve out a new state for the 19 indigenous tribes of Tripura under Article 2 and 3 of the Constitution. So, here these two articles become important for us, and they are basically regarding whenever there is a new state created, defining its geography, its like land territory, and apart from that, if there is any change in the size or name of a state. So the party had stated clearly in its media interactions that it was inclusive and would also take the non tribal population along. However, the party seems to have considerably polarized and already uneasy relationship between the tribals and the non tribals of Tripura since the state emerged from the days of armed insurgency. So, what are micro LED displays and why is Apple shifting to such micro LED displays? Here we'll be looking into what actually is micro LED display technology. So, the basis of this is sapphires. So, a sapphire can shine on its own forever. So, a micro LED screen is filled with small but strong light. So, picture in a micro LED screen is generated by several individual light emitting diodes. And when we talk about Samsung, the pioneer in this micro LED technology, it explained in a video that a micro LED is as small as cutting a centimeter of hair into 200 smaller pieces. So each of these micro LEDs, they are semiconductors that receive electric signals. So they are semiconductors which receive electric signals. So once these micro LEDs they are gathered, they form a module. So several modules are then combined to form the screens. So what are the benefits over the other displays? So they are much more brighter, they have better color reproduction, and they provide better viewing angles. So they make images appear as if they painted on the top of the device's glass, and they are quite the technological feat according to a report by Bloomberg. So they have limitless scalability as they are resolution free, bezel free, ratio free, and even size free. So the screen can be freely resized in any form for practical usage. And in addition to being self-emissive, these are also individually produced. They individually also produce red, green, and blue colors without needing the same backlighting or color filters. So some of the important things about them, and then Apple is also like going into using this technology. So we're celebrating and hosting Aero India. So basically, again, here would be highlighting the Make in India aspect, going self-reliant and being self-sufficient, promoting our indigenous technology. So like recently, we also had the light combat helicopter named Prachand. So basically, all these things are being highlighted. We have the light combat aircraft stages also. So promoting Atmanirbhar Bharat, a strong and self-reliant defense sector, will play a pivotal role in helping India emerge as one of the top three world economies. So, Indo-US unmanned aerial vehicle is going to be flight tested this year. So, this is ALUAV prototype will occur at a range in northern India as well as in the US. So China is planning Aksai Chin railway line to connect Tibet and Xinjiang. So basically, you can like open your atlases and locate where is Aksai Chin region located. And this line will broadly follow the course of G219 National Highway, the construction of Xinjiang Tibet Highway through Aksai Chin that had triggered tensions between India and China in the lead up to the 1962 war. So this obviously is a contested region between India and China. And like whenever there is any infrastructural project constructed in such disputed territories, India always says that this is violation of our sovereignty and integrity. So let's move on to the Financial Express now. So former agriculture minister says that agricultural exports they need support. The center must provide support for the modernization of agriculture. The production of fruits and vegetables is on the rise, but there are hurdles in its exports, which the center is not paying attention to. So a section of Delhi Mumbai Expressway and various other projects were inaugurated by a prime minister. So this is basically dedicated he dedicated the completed 246-kilometer Delhi Dosa Lalsot section of the Delhi Mumbai Expressway to the nation on Sunday, and he said that the expressway, one of the most advanced in the world, it presented a grand picture of India's progress. And when such modern roads, railway tracks, metros, and airports they are constructed, it gives momentum to the nation's progress. So definitely, even that has multiplier effects when it comes to economic growth of the country. So, a multi pronged strategy to boost millet production. So, we want to make millets more remunerative for the farmers through processing value added products in collaboration with the state governments as well as the corporates. So, basically, the Indian Institute of Millets Research, which will be developed as a center for excellence as announced by the finance minister in the budget. It is currently working with the state specific millet missions in states like Odisha, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, and Chhattisgarh with a focus on production, processing, consumption, marketing, and inclusion of millets in government schemes. So there is this RKVY Raftar, which is a flagship scheme of Agriculture Ministry, where we also have Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana, which is a remunerative approaches for the agriculture and allied sectors rejuvenation. And country's millets production is estimated at 20.5 million tons. So India is one of the highest producer of millets in the world. So millets can also help us in fighting the malnutrition problem also. And as we know that they're climate resilient crops and they are highly nutritious. So championing democracy, we have to continue to stand up for democracy, for democratic values that form the core of our strengths around the world. Comes from the President of US, Joe Biden. So the Indian economy is relatively strong at the moment, but the many crises of the world can seep in via the external account. So right now we are like strong and we have strong macroeconomic fundamentals. Our economy is resilient, but obviously there are some concerns when it comes to the global growth, which can impact our export sector. And also with rise in the policy rates, we are seeing that the foreign capital is moving out of the Indian economy at a massive scale, and which was one of the highest in January this year. So, which is obviously adding up to the pressure upon the Indian rupee also. So, Indian rupee is depreciating, which is then making our imports expensive. So, all of this is not in favor of India's economic growth. Now we'll shift on to the Indian Express. So here you can have a look at the Delhi-Mumbai Expressway, a part which was recently inaugurated by our Prime Minister. So Aero India show, even that started today. And so real returns, they turn positive, and depositors, they are moving their funds to the fixed deposits. So savers, they are getting a boost, and easing of inflation and a hike in the deposit rates by the banks. It has meant that savers, they will get better real returns in on their money in fixed deposits. So people, they are now shifting to these safer kind of investment options that they have. So they are now shifting to fixed deposits where even the interest rates have been hiked and inflation is moderating. So recently the repo rate was also hiked by 0.25 percentage and it has been increased to 6.5%. So when we talk about Haryana, so it is firstly it is a landlocked state, so it will be connected to the ports, and India's longest expressway is going to be passing through the state. So with the route through Delhi, Haryana, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, and Maharashtra, it is expected to significantly cut the travel time between the national capital and some of the major cities. So here even the time has also been provided to us. So here we have all the political news or some of the things that we have already taken up in the Hindu. So we are seeing new investments flowing into the state of Uttar Pradesh, which is hosting the Global Investors Summit. And again, talking about now millets. So India readies a plan to popularize millets on the world stage. So Mira is significant in view of the United Nations declaring this year as International Year of Millets. And this is a proposal for which was moved by India and supported by 72 countries. So the international year will see several activities such as conferences and issues of stamps, among others, to raise the awareness on millets, improving their production, and also attract investments and also promoting their consumption also. So MIRA stands for the Millet International Initiative for Research and Awareness, and that will be aimed at coordinating millet research programs at the international level. So the ultimate resource in economic development is people, as we say, human resource, their skills, and then periodically reskilling them is what is important. And we also talk about the importance of demographic dividend. So, saving the investor. With companies listed across jurisdictions, the task of market regulator has expanded now. Given the new challenges and new kind of issues being highlighted, so the area of market practices is wide in scope, and the regulators are normally in the thick of monitoring trading patterns and regulating the parties concerned. So, the price manipulation, for instance, is one practice that has always been a concern for the regulator, and it takes a lot of experience to detect it. And thus, exchanges they need to ensure that their market watch and surveillance practices they are robust. This is where the trading patterns can show if there has been market manipulations. So, given the Adani issue, again, the focus shifts upon the market regulators. So, it is a responsibility of the regulator to ensure that the generally accepted accounting practices they are followed for overseas listed firms. And investors they also need to be proactive when investing. So obviously whenever you are investing in any company's shares, when you're buying the shares, you need to be proactive, you need to be aware about the financials of a company, and obviously before investing you need to do a proper research and before taking the final decision. So those who buy and hold would at times they perhaps be better off not being moved by noise, but those who are more active investors they would perhaps need to be aware of developments in the companies that they have invested in. When savers they move away from the low yielding bank deposits and they enter the stock market, there are risks which go beyond just the normal market swings. So they cannot rely on the regulators to have a fix on everything. Therein lies the rub. So obviously, as an investor, you need to be much more proactive and rational when it comes to investing. So talking about the untapped potential of one of the most populous state of India, which can fuel its engine growth, is Uttar Pradesh. So obviously, the state is in light because it is hosting the Global Investors Summit. So it also has a target of being a $1 trillion state with an economy of $1 trillion. So the story it becomes considerably much worse in the per capita income levels where UP has been sliding down. So obviously because of the population pressure, we can say that the per capita income is sliding down because we are not seeing any increase in the income of the people over there. That is, we can say it can be because of less job growths. So as its population increased without commensurate increase in the economic growth, so we are seeing per capita income growth is sliding down. So since the early 1990s, when India embraced the economic reforms, several states which were smaller in terms of their overall economic size, such as Gujarat, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, they have overtaken the Uttar Pradesh. So this happened mainly because of two reasons. One was each of these states they improved their governance. So improving their governance and focusing on their own growth models. So each of these states they have their own unique growth models which proved successful for them. Secondly, is Uttar Pradesh it struggled to enunciate a clear roadmap and it remained plagued by inefficient and often corrupt administration. So, again, governance is very important, clean governance, and then having your own unique set of growth model which suits your particular state in the best possible manner. So, again, we have talked a lot about the fiscal dilemma in India regarding fiscal prudence, balance between our growth and stability. So the government's consolidation strategy relies heavily on centralization, which is both limits and limitations. So here the center's budget is also being presented over here. So if we try to understand it, basically different figures are given here. So basically true deficit has been projected at 4.3% for 2018-19. So that is the actual, we can say, deficit. And in terms of the budget estimate for the year 2023-24, it is 5.9%. True expenditures, it was 13.2, and it has increased to almost, we can say, 15%. So the state's share of GTR has been declining, and interest as a share of NTR has increased. So the center's consolidation strategy, it however relies heavily on centralization, which is both limits and limitations. So the limits are clear. Even under an optimistic scenario where centralization leads to a long needed improvement in the state government's efficiency, there is only so much consolidation that can be achieved in this fashion. So then the center will need to find other ways to reduce the deficit to its target of 4.5% of the GDP by 2026. So all of this assumes that the finances will play out of as foreseen in the budget as 2024 elections they approach. So euphoria and pessimism are both unwarranted, but anxiety gnaws. So that is there. And so the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, it may soon integrate ChatGPT with WhatsApp for key government schemes. So this is right now under testing. So the chatbot, which is currently under testing, it is being developed, keeping in mind India's rural and agrarian population and the sections of society that most depend on the government schemes and the subsidies and the various languages spoken by them. So all these things are being considered when the government is basically testing this thing. And apart from that, so right now we are building a WhatsApp based chatbot that relies on information generated by ChatGPT to return appropriate responses to the queries filed by the people. And because people, especially the farmers in the rural areas, may not always want to type out their queries, and questions can be asked on chatbots through the voice notes also. So basically, obviously, whatever government comes up with that needs to benefit the people, whenever like there is any query raised by the people, so that must be addressed in a proper sense, that it is actually resolved in the real sense. Then yesterday we talked about, like basically in yesterday's newspaper we have talked about Article 105 in detailed manner, which is regarding protecting their speech in the parliament. So they are safe from any civil or any criminal, basically majorly from a civil case. And in case of a criminal case, obviously they have to be like given a notice which can be filed against them. So understanding the farm exports data. So India's agricultural exports, they are on course to cross a new high, but easing world prices, it may dampen the prospects, and the oils and the cotton driven growth in the imports has important policy implications that need to be addressed. So the drivers of exports, the two big contributors to India's agricultural growth has been rice and sugar. So India in 2021-22 shipped at an all-time high 21.21 million tons of rice valued at approximately $10 billion, including both non-basmati and basmati rice. So, current fiscal, the growth has been primarily led by the basmati rice. Apart from that, most spectacular perhaps is sugar. So the exports, they have recorded a new high. They have hit around $4.6 billion. And India's exports of rice and sugar are well on course to touch, if not top, around $11 billion and $6 billion respectively in 2022-23. And exports of some big ticket items has faltered or they have slowed down. So that includes the value of buffalo meat. It includes the wheat exports. And so when we talk about the imports, more than a general export slowdown, it is the growth in the imports that should be a cause for concern. So we are seeing growth in our imports, and this has come mainly from three commodities. So we are basically seeing increase of imports of three commodities, which includes the vegetable oils whose imports they have shot up, and even more during the first 9 months of 2022. And apart from that, the second one is increase in cotton imports. So India's cotton exports, they reached an all-time high, but it remained at reasonably high levels until 2014. And before plunging down, they were in 2019-20, they started plunging down. So there was a recovery thereafter in 2020-21. So a high import of cotton, high import of vegetable oils, and thirdly, in case of cashews also, we are importing higher amount. And in terms of exports, we are performing good in rice and sugar sector. So the policy implications from the chart, we can see how closely India's farm performances is linked to the international commodity prices. So the UN Food and Agriculture Organization's food price index having a base value of 100 for 2014-16 period. So here the base year is 2014-16, and that averaged around 122.5 points in 2012-13, 119 in 2013-14. So those were the years where India's agricultural exports were at around 42 to 43 billion dollars. And this index, it crashed to 90 to 95 points in 2015-16 and 2016-17. So did the exports also. And exports, they recovered in 2020-21, and they happened on the back of rising global prices. So this index, it peaked in March 2022, just after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Since then, it has fallen every month and reporting a lower value every single month. So going by the past correlation, one can expect this to lead to India's farm exports slowing in the months ahead. So this could be accompanied by increased imports. So this is going to be a major challenge for us at the economic front. So the government needs to do something about cotton and the edible oils, because we are heavily importing them and India's cotton production has declined. So that is again a concern. So clearly the effects of not allowing the new GM technologies after the first generation BT cotton, they are showing up, and a proactive approach is required in edible oils as well, where planting of GM hybrid mustard has been permitted with great reluctance, and which is now before the Supreme Court. So this is the whole trend when we try to understand about our agricultural exports and even imports. So that's all for today. Thank you for joining on Sarkari. I hope you've understood every key aspect that we discussed about. You'll be getting the PDF link in the description box, so do not forget to have a look at the PDF. Do not forget to subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and share this video as much as possible. Thank you so much for joining us.